Okay, so today we are diving into Fulcrum. And, it's basically like the DoD's master plan to get their IT systems up to speed, into this century.
Yeah, ambitious is an understatement, right? We're talking about an organization that's trying to basically rebuild their entire IT infrastructure, and they have to do it while still, dealing with the realities of modern warfare, right? Like trying to change the tires on a car while it's still moving.
And they're really aiming high, talking about like achieving strategic dominance through IT. What strikes me is the emphasis on user experience. It's like they finally realized that a soldier, out in the field needs tech that just works, right? They don't have time to mess around with clunky interfaces.
Right, it's a huge shift in thinking. They're acknowledging that speed and agility are absolutely essential in modern warfare. You can't have clunky software slowing you down when decisions need to be made in like a split second.
So it's not enough to just have the latest tech. It's about how quickly and easily it can be used, right? How does Fulcrum plan to make that happen?
Well, their strategy is built around like 4 key lines of effort. Think of them as the pillars of this whole IT overhaul. The first one jumps right into it, focusing on, let me get it right, joint warfighting IT capabilities.
Okay, so breaking that down, that means giving the warfighter better tech, right? Like they specifically talk about reducing the number of systems that need, separate logins, which, come on, we've all been there, stuck in login purgatory.
Yeah.
But in combat, those extra seconds fumbling with passwords, that could be the difference between success and failure.
Absolutely. And it's not even just the time, right? It's the mental energy it takes to keep track of all those different systems. It impacts like your decision-making, your situational awareness, your reaction time, everything.
Imagine trying to, cook a gourmet meal, but you've got 5 different ovens, and each one has its own set of instructions. Something's getting burned, right?
Exactly. The goal here is to make everything more seamless for the warfighter. Give them the info they need when they need it without any unnecessary distractions.
So, better tools for warfighters. That's the first pillar. What's next?
All right, so the second line of effort, this is where it gets really interesting. It's all about laying the technological foundation, right? The document talks about how the DoD's legacy systems, they're dealing with bottlenecks and vulnerabilities, basically outdated tech that can't handle the massive amounts of data generated in modern warfare.
Like trying to run like a high-speed internet connection on dial-up.
Exactly. They need something faster, more adaptable, and that's where cloud computing comes in. And edge computing, right? Cloud computing gives them the vast storage and processing power, while edge computing brings that processing power closer to the action, right? Reduces latency, enables faster decision-making.
So instead of waiting for data to be sent back to some central location to be processed, they can make decisions in real time right there in the field.
Exactly. And the perfect example of this is their goal of, rolling out 5G across DoD installations.
5G. So this is about more than just giving soldiers faster internet to check their email, right?
Oh, yeah, way more. We're talking about completely changing how wars are fought. Imagine drone swarms coordinating attacks, with incredible accuracy, or getting real-time battlefield data to predict what the enemy's going to do next. 5G makes all of that possible.
It's like straight out of a sci-fi movie, almost. But okay, all of this advanced tech that requires a different way of managing IT, right? Which leads us to line of effort number 3, optimize IT governance.
Yeah, this one might sound a little, boring, but it's important. I mean, you can have the coolest tech in the world, but if your decision-making process is a mess, it's like, having a Ferrari stuck in traffic. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, the Ferrari's going nowhere fast. So how does Fulcrum deal with that?
It's about streamlining things, right? Getting rid of the red tape, making sure resources are used efficiently. And one key part of that is improving the data itself, making it higher quality and easier to access.
Because, like they say, garbage in, garbage out. Bad data leads to bad decisions no matter what.
Exactly. And the DoD has to deal with a crazy amount of data from all kinds of sources. They have to make sure that data is accurate, current, and, the people who need it can actually get to it.
Imagine you're a soldier in the field. You need air support. You need to know that the info guiding those airstrikes is accurate. There's no room for error when lives are on the line.
Exactly. And that's why Fulcrum talks about needing, trusted and curated data for decision-making. They want a single, unified view of the battlefield. It's often called a single pane of glass. It takes all that data from different places and turns it into a clear picture.
I like that. A single pane of glass. So instead of having to look at a dozen different screens, you have everything right there.
Exactly. And to make that happen, they're talking about using a more agile, iterative approach to IT. They specifically mention continuous authorization to operate CATO.
Cato. Okay, more than 3 letters in a row. You got to explain that one.
Okay, so think about how often your phone or computer asks you to, install software updates.
Which I will admit, I sometimes ignore for as long as possible.
Sure, we all do it. But what if those updates only happen like once a year? You'd be open to all sorts of problems. That's kind of how the DoD was handling IT updates in the past. Big, infrequent overhauls. CETO means moving to a more continuous process, faster updates, faster improvements, which makes the systems more adaptable, more resilient to new threats.
Gotcha. So we've talked about better tools for the warfighter and then overhauling the entire network infrastructure. But you still need the right people to manage it all right. Which brings us to the final line of effort. Cultivate a premier digital workforce.
And this one's critical. Because tech is only as good as the people using it, right? The DoD needs to get and keep top tech talent, developers, cybersecurity pros, data scientists, if they really want Fulcrum to succeed.
Right. It's like, giving someone a Stradivarius violin. Just because you own it doesn't make you a virtuoso. You need the skill to actually use it.
Exactly. And they know they've got competition. The document actually says that the DoD is up against the private sector, companies offering those big Silicon Valley salaries and perks.
Yeah, Silicon Valley isn't known for being, low-paying and boring. How's the DoD going to compete?
They're talking about, making the DoD a better place to work, competitive pay, opportunities to keep learning, a supportive work environment. They even talk about making the hiring process faster because they know that's a pain point right now.
It's like they've realized they're not just competing with other government agencies anymore. They're trying to get talent from Google, Amazon, all big players.
Exactly. And it's more than just getting people in the door, right? They need people who are, comfortable with the latest tech, who can learn new things quickly and solve tough problems. They even talk about building a culture of innovation in the DoD, which honestly hasn't always been their strong suit.
It's a huge culture shift. Makes you wonder, can they really pull it off?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Plans are great, but making them actually work is a different story.
Especially in a big, complex organization like the DoD. They've definitely got their work cut out for them. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, right? Giving those on the front lines the best possible tools, modernizing their networks, streamlining decision-making, and attracting the best tech minds.
Yeah.
It's a lot, even for an organization like the DoD. Are we talking about turning a battleship around in a bathtub here?
Yeah, and the document even acknowledges that. This all hinges on getting the implementation right. They talk about needing a whole new way of overseeing things, managing priorities, tracking everything, making sure everyone's accountable. But anyone who's worked on a big project knows even the best plan can fall apart if people aren't on board.
Right, it's not just checking off boxes. This is about changing how the DoD does IT. And that's everyone from the coders to the generals, right?
Exactly. And they're not sugarcoating it. The document is very upfront about the fact that the DoD has some catching up to do. The private sector, they've been leading the tech world for years, the DoD. They're stuck with old systems and slow processes.
Like they've been watching the race and now they want to jump in at the last minute?
Yeah, pretty much. A Fulcrum isn't just about new tech. It's about a whole new way of thinking for the DoD. They need to become more innovative, more agile, if they want to keep up in this digital world.
Which brings us back to that question. Can they actually do it? Do they realize how big of a change this is, how differently they'll have to operate?
Hard to say for sure. There are definitely going to be hurdles, people resisting change. And I mean, just the sheer size of the DoD trying to make this happen in such a large organization.
Plus, they got to get those talented tech people we talked about. And they're up against companies offering Silicon Valley money and perks.
Right. And tech doesn't stand still. By the time they finish Fulcrum, who knows what the next big thing will be. They need to be ready to adapt constantly.
It's like building the plane while you're flying it, as they say.
Exactly. That's what makes Fulcrum so interesting, right? Bold vision, huge stakes. But whether they can really pull it off, that's the big unknown.
So what does this mean for our listeners?
Yeah.
Well, if you're into tech, or if you use tech in your everyday life, and who doesn't these days? Fulcrum shows you the challenges of modernizing IT on a massive scale. Technology is only as good as the people using it and the systems behind it.
And this story's still being written. If Fulcrum works or flops, it'll have a huge impact, not just for the DoD, but for national security and the future of warfare.
If you found this deep dive interesting, we encourage you to check out the source document. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think the future holds for technology and the DoD? What lessons can we learn from Fulcrum's goals and the challenges it faces? Let us know. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.